Hi, this is Jackie, and today I want to talk to you and tell you about how I learned to listen to the signals. You know, it's funny, people often assume that expertise comes from books or certifications or courses, research papers, letters after somebody's name. Don't get me wrong, those things do matter. But some of the deepest understanding I have about wellness, stress, survival, and the body all came long before any of that. It came from living. I got married at 18, which in hindsight is approximately the age where you still think love and this feels right are enough to build an entire life on. And honestly, he wasn't a bad person. We were just two people who had absolutely no idea how much human beings change between 18 and 25. By 25, I was divorced with a 4-year-old son, making $800 a month as a bookkeeper at a law firm. I was theoretically receiving $100 a month in child support, although some months that money apparently got lost somewhere between intention and reality. So I learned something early. Stress isn't always dramatic. Sometimes stress is math. Sometimes stress is standing in a grocery store, mentally calculating which bill can wait another 3 days. Or sometimes stress is realizing you do not actually have the luxury of falling apart emotionally because people are depending on you. And like a lot of women, I adapted. I pushed through. I worked harder. I kept going. Then I got married again. And if I'm being honest now, many years later, that decision probably had a lot more to do with fear and survival than wisdom. I convinced myself it was safe. I convinced myself it was right. It wasn't. So there I was again, starting over. Only this time, I made a decision that changed the trajectory of my whole life. I went back to school because I never wanted finances determining my life choices ever again. That mattered deeply to me. I didn't want fear making decisions for me anymore. And after that divorce, I stayed single for 20 years. Not because I hated relationships, not because I was bitter, but because somewhere along the line, I finally learned to survive on my own. And during those years, I learned something else. The body keeps score of survival, not just physically, emotionally, neurologically, energetically. I remember asking a doctor years ago whether chronic extreme stress could have triggered my Hashimoto's. He told me no, flatly no. But deep down, that answer never fully made sense to me because my body had been living in survival mode for years by that point. And now we know something very different. We do know that chronic stress absolutely can influence immune function, inflammation, hormone signaling, nervous system regulation, and autoimmune patterns. Turns out the body was paying attention long before anyone around me was. And honestly, that moment stayed with me because it taught me something important. Just because something hasn't been fully acknowledged yet doesn't mean the body isn't already telling the truth. You can override stress signals for years and still function. People do it every day. But eventually, the body starts talking. Sleep changes, energy changes, recovery changes, hormones change, moods change, tolerance changes. And most people wait until the body's practically waving a flaming raccoon in a Walmart before they realize something deeper has been happening for a very long time. Then, about 12 years ago, life handed me another moment that sharpened everything I already believed. I was diagnosed with endometrial cancer. And by that point in my life, I had already spent years deeply immersed in supporting my wellness naturally. So when it came time to make decisions, I chose surgery. And for me personally, I chose not to do chemo or radiation afterward. That was not a decision made from fear. It certainly was not the right decision for everyone, but it was the right decision for me. Because somewhere along the line, after years of stress, rebuilding, surviving, learning, and paying attention, I had developed deep trust in the body's ability to work with us when properly supported. Not perfection, not magical thinking, just respect for the intelligence built into the human body. That experience changed me even more. Because when you've walked through something like that, you stop seeing wellness as trends and hacks and routines. You start seeing it differently. You see it as communication, as resilience, as adaptation, as the body constantly trying to survive, repair, and protect you. And somewhere along the line, I realized something very important. Turns out the body listens to signals. Stress signals, safety signals, fear signals, hope signals, rest signals, overload signals. The body's listening all the time. And honestly, that's why I care so much about teaching people to notice the signals beneath the surface now. Because the signals are usually there long before the crisis arrives. Sometimes the body whispers for years before it finally screams. And sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is finally listen sooner.